Hello everyone, and welcome to this short tutorial on how to create custom collisions using the Soulstruct Blender plugin. Apologies for the frame drops. I am recording without a GPU and that causes a lot of issues, especially when running the game. So I hope you enjoyed the slideshow in those scenarios. That's the best we're gonna get today. I'm going to assume that you already know how to create custom game meshes, so I'm going to skip that process, but you can see me sculpting one in the background, just to make sure we have something to work with during our collision creation. My workflow could also be considered obsolete, since I don't know how to use Blender efficiently, and I'm still learning it. So I'm relying on a combination of Blender for some plugin action and 3ds Max for optimization, UVs, and all the rest. Once my mesh is textured, optimized, and whatsoever, I will be baking it into the game using the MTD wizard, modified by Inferno Plus. Once the mesh is baked, I will proceed to position it into the game. You can do this using the DS Maps Studio application. Unfortunately, it relies on having a GPU, and because I don't have it, I'm forced to use Soulstruct for manual positioning. Hooray! We've got a mesh into the game, and it's got absolutely no collision. Creating custom collisions was a complicated process involving multiple programs and multiple steps, but nowadays the process is very simple. Boot up Blender 4.0, remove the starting light, camera and cube so that you have an empty canvas to start working in. Then import the object you want to create a collision for. I'd recommend importing the flavor file directly into Blender to assure one-to-one fidelity with your map piece. In my case, this is the asset I just created, called M1151B2A13. Once the flavor file is in, apply any modifiers it has active. We can ignore vertex groups entirely. The next step is to import an existing collision. We're not doing anything to it, but we're using it as a skeleton to set our own collision up. As you can see, when importing a collision asset, Soulstruct will import both the high and low resolution collisions, keeping the submeshes divided. Submeshes are basically used to bake multiple objects with different materials assigned to them, allowing for different visual effects and audio cues to be triggered when stepping or interacting with them. Since we'll be needing both a high and low resolution object to use as a collision, duplicate our flavor file and reparent it to the new collision container. Delete any leftover chaff in your hierarchy to keep it as clean as possible, and make sure to rename your container name as the collision name you want to use, in my case L1151B2A13. Delete all the deprecated submeshes and make sure to rename the newly added ones according to the naming convention, which is H for high resolution, L for low resolution, followed by the name, submesh, followed by an ID number, starting from 0 and going upwards. So if you add another submesh, it will be submesh 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. So now that you're done, it's time to export our first pass. Our first pass won't have any physics material, so we'll need to import it again and add them later. But for now, we'll just hit export, export to collision binder, and the system will be smart enough to assign the name into the binder by itself without us needing to do anything else. Just make sure you're actually baking it into the correct binder, into the correct map, because otherwise you will not be able to find your collision anywhere. Our last step is to add physics material to our collision. Shut the old instance of Blender down, reopen it so that you have a blank canvas and you've cleared out your memory out of all weirdness going on. I've had instances where sometimes if you re-import collisions, it will not re-import the data you need, and you'll be stuck trying to find it and it's not anywhere to be found. Once Blender's booted, click Import and import the newly created collision. You can do this by grabbing it straight from the binder, or if you have a loose file, just import that one instead. Once the collision's been imported, highlight the submesh and click on the yellow box on the settings column. Don't know how that's called, but I'm just gonna call it the yellow box. Expand the field called Custom Properties and you'll notice an entry called Material Index, set to 0. These indexes are so far unmapped, but I believe they're almost one-to-one with the Havoc Content Tools materials listed when you actually try to export a collision using the old method. More testing is needed though, because some of these indexes are currently pointing to unknown materials. Your best bet? Reverse engineering and trial and error. Because this block is made of stone, I'm going to set the parameters to 1, which is the ID for stone outdoors. Different materials have different values. For instance, wood I believe is 15, but as I stated before, trial and error is your best bet. Do this for both the low and the high resolution mesh. And you should be done. Now click export and export this collision to the binder. This should overwrite the previously existing one, adding the collision material. Fantastic. And last but not least, remember to add this collision to the actual map, otherwise it will not work independently. You can do this with DS Map Studio, which is a lot easier than using Soulstruct as I'm forced to do. The process is the same though. Place the collision at the exact XYZ coordinates and rotation as the in-game mesh that should have said collision. And voila, you're done. If you load Dark Souls and then run to the place where your mesh is, you should have a working collision supporting both high, low resolution and physics material. Thanks for watching, I hope you learned something new. And until then, ciao.